So what's the first thing we ought to do when we're checking a helicopter over? This is a daily inspection. This is what we're after. Yeah, that's right. So just looking at the helicopter from a distance, first of all, where is it parked? Is it near anything you don't want it to be near? The wind direction, all these sorts of things. A little bit more tricky on grass, but is there a sign of a leak? You know, if it's on the helipad, it's a bit easy to spot a leak with it, isn't it? Anything else?
I'm not sure if you can hear me, Paul, but I was thinking you probably want to check it's the right one.
Good, yes. Because, for instance, we got two of these and they look really similar. So it has been known for somebody to go to the wrong helicopter. So, yeah, check you got the right helicopter. There's another R22 here that looks really similar to our one. And again, if you're not careful, you end up wandering across the airfield to the wrong helicopter. But yeah, I know it's obvious stuff, but joking aside, yeah, make sure you got the right one. I mean, the Cabri, if it's locked, it's a bit tricky if you got the wrong one, isn't it? Okay. Now, the the sort of the fundamentals of checking these things over. Can you hear that wind all right?
Yes.
Good. That's right, because the headset should cancel out quite a lot of them, all my glasses. The fundamentals of checking one of these over is really the same as checking an R22. For the most part, 44, Jet Ranger, they're not that dissimilar because what's similar? They're all helicopters for a start off and one noisy aeroplane. They've all got fuel. They've all got these things, rotor blades, usually an engine, gearboxes, connecting rods, controls. Yeah, so there's a lot of similarities, isn't there? It's the sort of those individual technical details that might be different, or the way a clutch works, and this is different to an R22 and a 44. Jet Range doesn't really have a clutch like this at all. It has a sprag clutch, a free wheel unit, but no actual engagement, disengagement of the engine to the rotors. So it's those sorts of little extras, isn't it, that you want? All right. So of course we do have. Once that plane goes, that's a bit. So usually, you will find a checklist for checking your helicopter over. And you just stay in there because that's not really noisy. Unbelievable. And it will talk through things you need to check. Of course it will. Cabri very nicely sort of put here, station, for instance, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 5. And so you can see you start off at the pilot's door and eventually you end up back at the pilot's door again. And that's quite often how I'll do a daily inspection as well, in the same methodical manner rather than a random check a bit here and check a bit there. You want it to go in a fairly logical manner, don't you? Now, for teaching and for all these lovely students you can see in front of us, and Tom is on work experience. Hi, Tom. We you can look at me for a minute if you like. We want to make sure we're teaching you with the checklist. Of course we do, because that's what you're going to be using, isn't it, to go around the aircraft. So let's pick on Grant. Because Grant's got a Cabri, haven't you? Luckily, look, I'm gonna not. You don't have to do it from memory, Grant. And you want to see Grant's happy face. He's just been chosen. Look, it's like he's won the prize. So we start off, yeah, that's it. But there's usually a little bit of preamble, isn't there? You don't have to go right the way through it all. So what are we looking for, first of all? Yeah, exactly. Let's say it just depends on how the manufacturer, even the instructor, calls it. You know, we'd quite often call something a daily inspection or a check A, because that's the one you're going to do, the bigger one, if you like. And then there's some sort of a pre-flight or a secondary or check, whatever it is. So you need to establish what it needs, you know, which one is it going to be? Well, let's pretend this hasn't flown today. So it's definitely want to be a daily inspection. Is there a quick question for everybody? Is there a time when you wouldn't do a daily inspection? if you're not flying it. Well, yeah, could do. Yeah, sensible answer, maybe. When wouldn't you do a daily inspection? When wouldn't you do a pre-flight or a check B inspection, depending on what you want to call it? Go on, if you've yes, so if you've already done the daily, but is it a case of you mustn't do another daily inspection? No, no, of course you can, yeah. What about if you're not the first person to fly it in the day, but you've seen who was flying it before you, and you thought, I saw them do the daily inspection. It took them about 2 minutes. How thorough is that? So therefore, you'd do it again, wouldn't you? So don't take it as literal as a daily inspection only gets done once. You can do it as many times as you like, can't you? And you might decide to do it more than once because of various reasons. And so when we get into the whole, when you're just doing the sort of secondary pre-flight, the subsequent flights, there's oh sorry, the sun's around. There's no harm in checking more things, is there? When you think about it, you could literally just do a daily inspection every single time. So just always remember that side of things. So we never tell you off for checking too much. No matter what the manufacturers say about you only have to check the fuel once a day or anything along those lines. No, you check it as many times as you think you need to and be sensible about it. Anyway, that's my prattling on about that. Okay, so what are we going to do first then? Oh yeah, so we've just been walking over to the helicopter and it looks like it's parked, let's just say in a sensible position. Um, let's just say it's not, let's just say it's into wind because it isn't into wind. But why have we parked it this way round out the sun? Because yeah, literally cook the cockpit. The screens don't like it, they'll fail on you and all sorts of things. And yourself. I mean, we got into his earlier, been parked in the sun, didn't we, Caroline? And it was like literally burning your legs. So what did we do? Yeah, we got out, stuck wheels on it, turned it round. Yeah. So there's never any harm in repositioning your aircraft either. And people forget that, this is all part and parcel. Don't just accept it where it is. If you're not happy with it and it can be moved, then move it or get somebody to move it. Simple as that. Okay, so we did that walking over, parked in a sensible place, no leaks, seems like it's upright, doesn't appear to have any visual damage. And Grant, you then said,
Brilliant. So airframe covers, pitot and stacking to tie downs, and exhaust plug.
can you, anybody online, just want to check something. Can you hear when Grant talks?
Barely.
Barely. Yeah. Okay. I'll just repeat what he says. So here's a preliminary. So you're just checking, for instance, a bit like we've just done, but now we're getting close to the aircraft. Are there any covers on it? Because your aircraft could have covers on all sorts of things, ranging from literally the whole thing completely covered over, blades, heads, the whole shebang. Or it might just have a couple of small things. Now on a Cabri, one that can get missed very easily, which will have a huge impact on the flight, is the pitot cover. So you'd have to know your aircraft, of course. On the Cabri under here is the pitot tube. And then there's also the static source just up here. And these can have covers on them. And if it's covered up, what doesn't work? Airspeed. So you can't tell how fast you're going. And although the pitot is just a split pin, doesn't quite block it up. But if the static source, if the static source was blocked with something, a cover or what wouldn't work?
Altimeter.
Altimeter, yeah. Keep going.
Your
What else
climb indicator.
Yep, so the vertical speed indicator. Anything else? Would the airspeed indicator still work?
No.
It will work, but it might be over or under reading if your static vent's blocked. Because the pitot tube, it's not meant to be a full-blown aircraft general knowledge. Well, it is, I suppose. The pitot tube actually doesn't just measure dynamic pressure, it measures static pressure at the same time. And the idea is the instrument's vented to a static source, so it gets rid of the static and it just therefore leaves you with a dynamic which will turn into airspeed. So if the static source is blocked, then the airspeed indicator will potentially read fine down at this level if this is where it's blocked. But if you climb, it might overread, underread, etc., depending on where it gets blocked. Anyway, make sure the covers are removed. Is that? That's match. Yeah, so make sure those covers are removed. We've got no screen cover on at the moment. No, good. And no other covers on it right now. We just checked the static and the pitot. There's nothing on the fenestrum.
Common thing on Cabri, the exhaust cover.
Yeah, that's right. But of course, they don't really have an exhaust cover. We just made those out of silicon. Yeah, they just shoot off, so that's not too drastic. But yeah, right. What's next, then, Grant?
In cold weather, frost, ice or snow.
Yes, because you don't want it on your blades, do you? Because that causes drag, but it also modifies the shape of the blade. And bearing in mind these are, precision made, aren't they? The last thing you want is something changing the shape of them. That would not be good at all. And what about if you've got some sort of frost or something on the screen of the aircraft? You can't see where you're going, can you? Not a good idea. Always have to be a bit careful when cleaning frost off the windscreen, because if you use water, it could make it a lot worse. If you try and scrape it, yeah, don't forget these screens, they're only perspex plexiglass, so they're very, they're very easy to scratch if you start rubbing bits of ice across them. So you need to be quite careful. But you certainly don't pour boiling water over them. You even potentially have to be careful what sort of de-icing, try again, any de-icing agents, those sorts of things. Yeah, it's plastic. Posh name is plexiglass. Yeah. Perspex, isn't it? Yeah. It's just perspex, really. Cool.
Facing is the front.
Yep.
Starting with main rotor blades.
Yes.
But to know, not quite cost a pin, not more I must decide. It's all still.
Yeah, this is it. So we can start off potentially with the blades, can't we? And just reading slightly ahead. So let's clean, flush the tips, right hand doors. Yeah, I just wanted to triple check something. So we're going to start off, with the blades, for instance. Now on the Cabri, we can pull these down. Don't go over the top with it. Allegedly, touch the ground with them, but I don't really want to try it with one of mine. But apparently, you can put them and make the touch ground. It won't cause any damage. So we can check things like the upper surface, the lower surface. If it's got some sort of, which they nearly all have, some sort of cap, because behind there is,
Weights.
yeah, weights for balancing the rotors. And sometimes on the Cabri, we might try one or the other, you can hear them rattling. Yeah, they're not screwed down necessarily, but these caps do need to have, you can probably see their locking wire, so they're all locked into place. And then we would spin them around and check the next blade and the next blade. On the Cabri, we've got these trim tabs, as we can see usually. Now we need to be very, oops, I can't see because it's so bright. There it is, yeah. We need to be a bit careful with these because they're bonded on the back of the blade. If it's not bonded on properly, then you can get water going underneath and they can actually come off. So we have to be a little bit careful. Yeah, we had those removed on Echo Hotel. Yeah, because this one's been overhauled at Gimbal. So they put them back on again. Okie dokie. Yep, so let's just say we've checked the blades, all three of them.
Yep.
Can't see anything nasty about the leading edge, etc., etc. Okay, so what we're doing next with the Cabri is we're coming round to the, nearly said driver's side, round to the pilot side. And what we're checking with door hinges.
The pin is there. The only
Yes, not the later models. So what would, heaven forbid, if there wasn't some sort of mechanism to keep these hinges in place, what might happen as we fly along? Yeah. Yeah. Because the door pins usually, or the hinges, are backwards. In other words, any pressure would lift the door off. And where would it go? Up there, or potentially a tail rotor helicopter through the tail rotor. So that's not very good. suddenly it's like, oh, okay, this is a bit more serious, isn't it? Now everybody here is sort of spotting, hang on. These haven't got any locking pins on them that are going through. Why is that?
Because you should warm down
No? If I open this door and try and take it off, what happens? It won't come off. Oh, my finger's in there. Because the early ones didn't have this extra piece. See how this claw goes over the top? Yes. And the claw over the top stops the door from coming off. But notice there's a little keyway in it. That's so that if you do want to take the door off, you open the door, you release the gas strap. There's a couple little circlips. The door can now go further, and suddenly the hinge, the little nodule on the hinge there, lines up with that slot, and you can take the door off. If it doesn't have this extra piece, then they have to have the pins in the bottom of them. I think Echo Hotel has still got them, so it hasn't got these secondary bits on top. So this one doesn't need it. I mean, you could for belt and braces put them in there, but there's literally no need. So we see this on the 22, don't we? We've got locking pins in the door hinges. Yep, exactly. All right, yep, so that looks okay. Next up, Grant. Yeah. So we're still really on the outside of it at the moment. So making sure the windscreen's clean. It has got a few squash bugs on there. So and the they call it the slipstream string is nicely intact. Should we just leave the bugs? Why is that? Yeah, it can be. Yeah. Yes.
The bugs look like aircraft from afar.
Yeah, John's
far
saying the
away.
same thing on online here. Yeah, they do. With anybody with experience. So what happens? It's like, well, of course you can see aircraft. Of course you can. But what happens with your brain? It cancels them out. It's not your eyes. It's not you don't see them every time. And the number of times I've done it, especially if you've got one that's squashed and it's a stripe, it looks like wings, and you go, "Whoa, oh, it's a bug." Yeah, it's a bug. You know, but about the fifth time, I kind of forget to do it because like, yeah, it's a bug, or my brain tells me. And then next, it's not a bug; it's an aircraft. So it's always a good idea to try and at least start off with a clean windscreen to minimise that. Otherwise, it is horrendous. You literally, your brain teaches you to just disregard any blob because it's clearly a squashed fly, and it isn't. Okay, yeah, so we'll clean this off. There we are, it's all cleaned, just like that. Low windows, yeah, they call these chin bubble windows. Same thing, potentially making sure they're clean, but not just simply clean, but they are, yes, intact, no damage, not like to come out or come off, I should say. And same with the windscreen, look, making sure. It's John. Hang on a minute. He's seen us now. Hey, that's it. Good. Yep, okay, so the screens look like they're attached, they're in place, same with the side panels. Yes. Landing light, yes, it has one. Do we just want to see that it's there, or?
It's not loose.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah, good. No obstructions. This is where the fresh air comes in on these, through here, or some of it does anyway. Yep. Yep, cover's been removed for the pitot tube. Now, something else you quite often, you'll certainly see me do, it's not praying before I go flying, it's just look under the helicopter, just to make sure it all looks okay underneath. There's no sign of any damage, nothing hanging off, no obvious signs of leakage, etc., those sorts of things. Hey, Jonathan, you right? Yeah, okay. Now, of course, we might want to test the landing light, but it's always a good idea to do the electrics all at once rather than turn the master on, check this, turn it off again, turn it on, turn it off, turn it off. You might as well just do anything electrical in one hit, mightn't you? So if it did say check the landing light works right now, I think, oh, all right, I'll either do that and do the other things, or I might leave that more towards the end. But I'll do it as a group. So it's turn the master on once, check everything, and then turn it off again. Yes, again, that's under the helicopter, how the skid gear is actually attached and making sure it hasn't slipped. Yeah, that's it. So anybody, oops, hold on. That's the grass. So it's my torch I'm laying on. So on the Cabri, the front skids are clamped down in two places, and if you can just about see, we've got lines drawn on the skid tube and on the body of the aircraft, so we can see if it's moved because they're only clamped, they're not rigidly attached in place, and we've got lines around here around the rubber mounts as well. So if it's landed with some yaw, they would move. And I haven't. It's all nice in the line, I'm pleased to say. Yeah, anything else whilst I'm under here? Good. Right, I'm coming out. Yeah. Let me just put my torch on the seat a second. So what I'm going to... Whoops, who's that, Darren? So I'm going to end up round that side. So I'm just going to stay on this side for now. We also extra things whilst I'm around this side. The skids, we can look at if there's any damage on the aircraft because the Cabri moves on the skids. It literally rocks around. So it's not unusual just to see sometimes a couple of little marks on the skid tubes. Make sure there's no serious cracking of skid tubes. Down the bottom of this paint is just because there's a rubber seal or there's rubber seal under there. So it will look like it's cracked. And we want to make sure it's been modified, that the retaining bolt is in and it's not loose in any way, shape or form.
Paul, if you can hear me, can I ask, I haven't flown a Cabri, what is that little protrusion underneath where the skids are?
Well, that.
Forward of that, yeah.
Just there.
Yeah.
That's your ELT aerial.
Ah, right.
Emergency located transmitter.
Okay.
And these are, on ours, these are VOR aerials.
Right.
And then up the top there is your VHF one for your radio.
Right.
Yes, that's the emergency located transmitter down there.
Thanks.
Okay, what have we got next then? Yep. Yeah, because it goes round anti-clockwise, doesn't it? That's why. Sorry. Yeah. Sorry. Got to apologize. Sorry. So we did check this as well. Yeah, I forgot they do it round the other way, don't they?
So fuel cap, nav lights.
See, it's all to do with the way the rotors turn. You have to go the opposite direction. Oh dear. There comes another one. All right, so same sort of thing. Door hinges, windscreens, etc. Same with the skid tubes. Make sure there's no excessive damage. Noisy lot. It's Ascot this week, isn't it? Ascot. Yep, we have one. It's on, that's required. I mean, don't forget, we can always take it off. We can have a look. There should be a black seal inside there, so that if you had quite a lot of fuel, it couldn't slop out. Why does that need to definitely be sealed up? You know, what if we haven't got a fuel cap? Well, yeah, exactly. It could get contaminated if it's raining, for instance. We potentially would lose fuel, especially if you don't fly in balance. So what? Where's that fuel going to go?
Needs pressure?
No, it doesn't need. It doesn't need any pressure.
It's going to head back towards a nice big hot engine.
It goes back here, and towards exhaust pipes that are running at sort of 600-700 degrees. Next thing you know, yeah, God, a very warm cockpit. Yeah. So it's a fire hazard, isn't it? So the fuel cap really does need to be on. All right, so I'm just going to pretend I'm going to refuel the helicopter because it needs some fuel. What should I do with the cap? I'll surely just put it up there, don't we? Look, rest it carefully on top of the helicopter. On the rotor blades.
Just put it on the floor like everyone else.
Put it on the floor. Yeah, we'll put it down there. Yeah, that's fine. That'll be all right. What should I do with it?
Don't put it down.
Yeah, put it. Sorry, what did you say online?
Don't put it down.
Don't put it. Yeah, but it's tricky. I mean, at the moment, I've got a phone in my hand as well. I mean, what am I going to refuel with my foot? Obviously, don't refuel your phone. Yeah, so we tend to put it on the pilot seat. Why on the pilot seat? Why do we put it on the pilot seat? Yeah, otherwise you're going to wonder what the heck that is you sat on, isn't it? So that's the idea. Yeah, anything we take off, if we put it on at least the pilot seat, then hopefully there's no chance you can go flying without what should have been attached to the aircraft.
Let's hope you don't use the instructor seat on the way home then.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, so we've refueled. Make sure the cap goes back on properly. Job's a good one.
Have lights.
Yes, it has some. Unless we'll check the electrics in a minute, or we can do it now. But I'll do it in a minute when we get back round to that door that I was going to go to next.
Oh, skid to this side.
Yeah, so skid tubes, etc. A bit like also checking for any excessive damage, that the bolts around the back are tight, no sign of any damage here. If you do lots of engine off landings onto hard surfaces, what else do we need to check with the skids? Yes, now we can't see them on the grass. So when we land on hard surface, what we land on is not actually the tube itself. It's underneath there. There are tungsten carbide shoes that are bolted on. I can't even show you. Let's try the front ones a minute. No, you can just about see some of the fixings. For instance, there's one of them there and one back here. So there's one skid shoe at the front underneath the actual skids themselves. I say you can't see those unless you can put wheels on the aircraft and pick them up, and then you can look at them a bit better. Or like I say, if it's on a solid surface, you can actually just see the clearance between the skids and the ground. Okie dokie. Next up. Yeah, okay, so that's under the... God, it's all down under here at the moment, isn't it? So the fuel manifold on the Cabri is this unit. This is where the drain is for the fuel tank as well. And here, all attached to this is the lifter pump of the fuel in the tank, and also the level sender, the capacitance level sender goes up inside the tank. Yeah, so it's got one not leaking. Yep. So we use a to do a drain valve sample. Cowling hinge, yep. Okie dokie. Come back up again now. So this is the cowling, and just checking that the hinge. What about the hinge? It's got one. Yes, so there's a very big long, sometimes called piano hinges. There's a great big long hinge with a pin that goes all the way through there. Because if this was damaged, this is quite a big cowling to come flying off, isn't it? And same with, the upper cowling, just making sure the bolts are in place. So yes, it's got one. Hey, Cabri have got on the latch itself, there's an extra little one just here, and you have to move that out of the way to be able to undo these. So without moving that, it becomes very difficult. You can't literally pull the latch. One there, one at the back, underneath as well. There we go. And if I try and open it, what happens? It's stuck. Look. Why is that? Yeah, so underneath the cowling, you have to pull it down a little bit to release it, because there is a safety hook. So if you forget to latch these up, it still can't actually come undone. And then even after all that, the cowling itself is on a gas strut, will only go up so high that it will clear the rotors as well. Now, I'm not suggesting you should go flying like that, but if it did actually manage to come undone, it's not going to hit the rotor disc, which is good news. Yeah, absolutely. But you don't want to test that theory, do you, ideally? Okie dokie. Batteries, a strap around it, yes. And I can even see things like on the battery terminals, there's little torque stripes to show if it's come undone. We can carefully wiggle them, make sure. Yes, down here's just one there, the auxiliary one. No, we'll actually fly about that. Any idea if we pulled that circuit breaker, what might happen in a Cabri? The auxiliary one.
The immobiliser won't work. Well, the immobiliser will work, but it won't let you start the engine.
Yeah, so the immobiliser, as you say, won't work, as in the key fob. It will still let you start as long as you've unlocked it. So if I pull it now, because it's unlocked, it'll all still work okay, but something else won't work. Don't expect anybody desperately to know, but it's a cigarette lighter. Yes, it has a cigarette lighter. So there's a 12-volt socket that we can plug things in. And so we tend to have things like the iPad plugged into it and the Pilot Aware. So you won't be able to charge your iPad in one of ours or have the Pilot Aware working if that circuit breaker is not in. Yeah. But in the great design of the Cabri and the convenience of what sort of Bruno wanted with it, the cigarette lighter is permanently live. So therefore, anything you do have plugged into it will drain the battery. And we had problems just in the early days because where we had things plugged in, if you didn't switch it off, yeah, next thing you know, the next day or 2 days later, the battery's flat. And so we now have a matter, of course, at the end of the day, once we've finished and it's all locked up, just to be absolutely certain, we tend to pull the circuit breaker. So therefore, it can't drain the battery. Yeah. Yeah, because it's really easy. Yeah. Oh, yeah, because it's a pain to get down there. Yeah, just literally just do done. Okay? That's it. Done. Done. But it does mean now you can't lock it, unlock it. So let's say just do it afterwards and then shut the cowling down. Yeah, that's it. Sorted. And like I say, it's not safety critical because it will fly. Everything will work apart from just the auxiliary stuff you plugged in. Exactly. So yeah, we do occasionally have that. Yeah, the Cabri won't unlock. Have you put your auxiliary, you know? Okay. Map. Okay, so manifold air pressure. So this line here. How long have we got? 6:30 tonight. On the Robinsons, the manifold air pressure line. So this goes to a sensor that senses what the inlet manifold air pressure is to give us a bit of an idea of how hard the engine's working. In the Cabri, it's a little bit more sophisticated than that. It's still a manifold air pressure line, but I've just noticed this pipe is flexible, whereas the Robinsons, it's a metal pipe. Why has this one got flexible pipe?
Because the engine moves when you put the clutch in.
Yeah, good. So Grant and John said it. They're Cabri pipes. They ought to know. So John said it as well. Yeah, so the engine, the clutch mechanism, these engines move up and down, which means this needs to flex. So this is, there's a noisy helicopter. If this pipe was too short, that wouldn't be good news. It put a lot of strain on it. So it needs to be just the right length. And we've also found over time that if this pipe is too long, it just rubs on here. And next thing you know, it just rubs a tiny little hole in the back of the pipe. It leaks. We've now got problems because it creates errors on the screen. Same sort of thing can happen in Robinsons. If that pipe's cracked or the little union's loose on the manifold air pressure line, you'll massively overread. So you'll think you're putting way too much power, and you're not. Anyway, yeah. So very quickly, the Cabri one now actually goes round the corner and up to this little unit that also has a vent on it as well. So this sensor can sense manifold air pressure and atmospheric pressure. Yeah, Grant just said about the belt. So hopefully you can see back here, looking at the condition of it. This all looks like it's in alignment. No lumps of belt material anywhere. Occasionally you'll get a tiny bit of black dust off the belt where they slip, of course, when you're engaging and disengaging. Yeah, so where are they? Yeah, what are we looking for there?
These spike connectors.
Yeah, I wouldn't wiggle them too much because if you're not careful, you'll end up breaking the terminal off the back of one of your coil packs. Yeah. So, like Grant just said, looking at making sure they're all attached and that they don't rub on anything. So we've found in the past the coil packs can slip round and see how this connector is really close to that coil pack. It can be pressed against it, which is not good. And these do just literally look move on the framework. So you just have to keep an eye on those, that they're not touching and that the high tension leads are not touching the framework. Otherwise, they have a nasty habit of arcing out and you get tiny little misfires, those sorts of things. And where they pass through the cooling fan housing, they're not rubbed away significantly. They're supposed to have these little extra doublers on them to help. Yeah, okay. This is what we call our baffling. Skirts down here. Because it's direct, so we've got a big cooling fan blowing air over the engine, downwards over the fins of all the cylinders. Yes. Well, I don't know if you can't probably hear what John's saying. Where's the magneto? Okay, yes. And the magneto is self-generating. Therefore, it doesn't need a power supply, whereas these are electronic ignition, and this is the power supply and trigger wires for them as well. Whereas the magneto might have wires on it, but that's not for making the actual magneto work. If you spin the engine, that works. Simple as that. Unless you've earthed it out via the switch, for instance, of course. But yeah, magneto itself. So if we remove that from the aircraft, just span it, stuck an electric drill and span it around, yeah, it will generate electricity. That's it. Okay, yes. Yeah, high tension leads. It's like you have in a car. Yeah, absolutely. Because of course it's still high tension that comes out of a magnet. It's just not as powerful as the plasma ignition. You tell me. Anybody else? Any advancements? Well, hang on a minute. Look, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I'm gonna guess 8. Yeah. So there's 2 plugs per cylinder for good reasons. Why? Redundancy, yeah. So if one doesn't work, hopefully the other one does. Because what you discover is for instance, in the Cabri engine, the upper spark plugs are supplied by the plasma ignition, electronic ignition, and the lower plugs by the magneto. So in other words, the magneto supplies a complete set of spark plugs, and so does the plasma. So if the magneto didn't work, it'll all run off the plasma. If for some reason the whole plasma ignition system failed, it would run off the magneto. Now, each one of these cylinders is how big capacity? I mean, how cubic capacity is the size of the whole engine? Oh, we've got a few, aren't? What do you reckon, Tom? Do you want to hazard a guess? 4-ish, 4 litre, Tom's gone for. 3.98. Caroline? It's an 0360, yeah, 360 watt cubic inches. With a quick conversion, that is just a little under 6 litres. So 1.5 litres per cylinder. We've got one in the back office. It's only when you look at it and think, oh my God, it's massive. And if you ever compare that to a car engine, I mean, sometimes in a car, the biggest the cylinder will ever be is about 1 litre. You take high performance cars, usually it's only about 0.5 litre. Small. It's like a third of each one of these cylinders. So what I'm trying to get at here is bearing in mind how fast this thing's running and how quick things have got to happen, i.e. the explosion in there, trying to ignite effectively 1.5 litres, it doesn't quite work like that, but 1.5 litres of capacity, it's not very efficient to have one plug. You need 2 plugs to make it far more efficient. Do you remember, I think off the top of my head, Alfa Romeo was some of the first car manufacturers to do twin spark. Yeah, to try and improve that combustion, and it worked. So this is, in essence, twin spark, but more for A, redundancy, and B, just to improve the efficiency. And we see this in the Cabri, don't we, Grant and John? Anybody that flies a Cabri? Yeah, you do an ignition test. You earth out the magneto, and there's barely any difference. I mean, you barely notice it, don't you? You switch off the plasma and run just on the magneto. It's really obvious. It'll run and it'll fly, but it's really obvious. So in the Cabri, we have to be quite careful to make sure we've switched the magneto, if you like, back on again, because it would be so easy to go and fly. It's a bit like the 44. If you're not careful, you can run on one mag and you'll barely know. It's only the trained eye that spots it. Yep, it'll happily fly, even with 4 people on board, the 44 and 1 magneto. Being a 6-cylinder engine, it's a bit smooth and you don't notice the roughness of it. Anyway, yep. So sorry if we've gone out about that, but it is quite important, isn't it? Yeah, good. Yep, so, sorry, Grant, go a second. Yeah, so we've got things like, well, I mean, weirdly enough, the exhaust pipe is, certainly the exhaust box is easy to see the other side of the room, but just concentrate on this side of the engine, looking at the pipe, making sure there's no signs of any leaks. Of course, it's not hot now because it's sat for a little while. These sort of stainless steel exhaust, although you can see not necessarily, some of them mild steel. Oh, is that what it is? Inconel, okay. They kind of corrode, but not quite like mild steel, for instance. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, in no time at all. Yeah, you have to go get them chrome plated and they last a bit longer. Okay. What else have we got on the list, Grant? Yeah, that's I mean, remember, just looking at this side, so it looks like it's not cracked or anything because we'll check it from the other side as well. Yeah, so down here we've got things like throttle linkages. We've got sensors up here. So I'm not going to go over every single thing with detail. We've got mixture control. In essence, it's even if you didn't know what they were, if you come and have a look, Come on, there's plenty of room down here. Even if you didn't know which one was which, what would we be looking for with these? Well, I can't see it going backwards and forwards from down here, but I'd have to adjust the controls. But what am I looking at? Yes, there is. Yeah, look, and there's actual split pins. There's witness marks that it's attached. They're not loose, etc., etc. So I say, even if you didn't know exactly what else to look for, you could just see that they're attached. It's not loose. The witness marks are all there, and there's no obvious fouling on anything. Because bearing in mind, yeah, these things move backwards and forwards, so you want to make sure there's no wires hanging around them or something along those lines. Yep. Yeah. So, specifically on the Cabri round here, you have to make sure my phone's in the right place. This bit of wiring is out the way. This arm will move, and it's currently in the cold position. There's a quite easy to see red arrow on the side here that points down this way for hot. Now, when we come to the electrics, I'm going to show you this working. So we're going to save the electrics all in one go. So we're going to come back to this. Yeah, that's back up the top. So whilst I'm down here, I'm going to check. This is the heat exchanger and the heater pipe that goes into the cockpit. It's all attached. I can even see, because remember, the checklists don't necessarily have every single thing on them. You'd be surprised sometimes what's omitted. Looking up this side of the engine, I can see the back of the starter motor and the wiring that's attached to the back of the starter motor, making sure it all looks okay. It's not fouling or anything. Where it passes through the bulkhead of the engine, just here. You should just about be able to see that. There we go. Yeah. But it's not chafing on anything, because if that shorts out, what might happen? Yeah, you get electrical fire. Yes, hence, yeah, hence that's right. Making sure that it's not actually rubbing on this relatively thin alloy skirting and rubbing away at it. Yep, so that all looks good. I can see the back side of it all. Okie dokie. Whilst I'm down here, I mean, there's a whole myriad of bits of wires and various things. I'm making sure there's no leaks. Yeah, that's right. Even whilst I'm down here, because I'm sitting on the ground right now, I can check the alignment of the rear skid tube as well. The clamps, because it's only clamped in now one place, just here, where it's clamped onto the bodywork of the car. The earth strap's in place. We don't get lots of static from the skids. And you can see there's a little sign on it. This is only for tying down only. This is not for makeshift, underslung loads. Oh, I know. Yes. Yeah, there's a cargo hook. Yeah. No, it's not there. Okay. Yep. So coming on up a bit, we've got a mechanical fuel arm. Let's just check my camera again. There we go. Actually, let's make that a bit bigger so I can see what I'm doing. Like that. So mechanical fuel pump. Breather pipes for it. I've just noticed, Grant, or anybody else actually, a lot of these pipes have got this orange stuff around them. In fact, I saw a bit more of that down here. Look, it's sort of a bit squidgy. It's fire retardant material. And in particular, so for instance, down here, the framework where it goes onto the body of the aircraft, in case we did have an engine fire, helps stop that getting incredibly hot and failing around this area. So therefore, if a pipe, like this, for instance, has got this red stuff around it, I wonder what's inside, what it's protecting, or oil, anything flammable. So fuel and oil. As it says, flame retardant material. Why has this helicopter got two fuel pumps? Hang on, Grant. That's weird. It's carburetted. So come on now. Come on down here. Look, come on. Look, there's a carburetor. It isn't that dissimilar to our R44, which is also carburetted, but there's a fuel pump in the fuel tank and there's a fuel pump here. How in our 44, which is carburetted, how many fuel pumps has it got? None. That's what he said. Yeah, just said he heard. If it's a Raven 2 fuel injected, it's got two pumps, but our one isn't. So why? And the R22, Caroline, how many fuel pumps has our R22 got? None. Yes. Because they're gravity fed. So why is this one got fuel pumps? Because there's a carburetor, and up there's a fuel tank. Yeah. Apart from when you stand back, the carburetor's here, and the bottom of the fuel tank is down there. Is lower than the carburetor. So if we filled this up with fuel, then it's much higher than the carb. So it could be gravity fed. But the problem is the last, let's just say 20, 30 litres of fuel is the same height or lower than the carburetor. It will not travel, will it? Because it can't go uphill. So we have an electric pump in the tank, often called a lifter pump, just to get the fuel out the tank. And then a secondary pump, just a mechanical one, bolted to the engine with a little, there's a little lever and a diaphragm, just pumps fuel. Yep. What does the carburetor do? Well, it mixes the fuel and air. So there's a bit more to it. That's the nuts and bolts behind it. There's a thing called a butterfly valve in there that you actually use your throttle that either allows air to flow through this narrowing called a venturi. So you have to make a little butterfly in there, or it flattens off to stop it. So that's opening and closing the throttle. And as air rushes through the carburetor, through the venturi, it increases in its velocity, which means it drops in pressure and temperature. The drop in pressure is what makes it work, because that effectively sucks the fuel in, because it's not pushed in, it just sucks it in, comparative to the outside pressure. But the downside is it drops in temperature, which is why we need to have Cabri, which is why we need to test it works, because it's pretty serious otherwise, because you'll have an engine failure. And I did. I know. So why 2 fuel pumps? Because this one's electric. And what if we have an electrical failure? You've got a mechanical one. So the question is why 2 fuel pumps? Well, that's gotcha. Come on, anybody online want to be brave enough? They've gone very quiet online.
Redundancy?
Somebody just said redundancy. Why have we got 2 ignition systems primarily? Redundancy. Because if you don't, you have an engine failure. If we have an interruption to the supply of fuel to the engine, what do we get? Engine failure. So if you purely rely on the electric one and we have no electrical power, that would not be good. And if you purely relied on the mechanical one, which doesn't need electricity, but that packed up because you've got a split in the diaphragm, that'd be no good. So by having 2 and on different systems, with a bit of luck, remember, you'd in a Cabri, you'd only get potentially that engine. No noise one. You'd only get the engine failure if the fuel got down to here somewhere. But I'm not about to try and experiment with that. Now, whilst we can turn the electric one off with a switch, the mechanical pump is working as soon as the engine turns. That one's working. And all it does is it just pumps in very, very low pressure, only about 0.3, 0.4 of a bar. So that's all of about 6 psi, 5 psi. It's not much, about the same as in a balloon. So not a lot of pressure at all. Just delivers the fuel to the carburetor, which has a little reservoir, and from there it gets sucked into the venturi via the venturi effect.
Notice on your fuel pressure gauge either or not working though, right? Do you not notice the difference in the mechanical?
There's a very slight difference. So when we start looking, where's the fuel pressure sender? This one's got the later version. If you had the remotely mounted one now, it's meant to be a bit better. So the fuel pressure sender is just here on the pipe, on the side of the fuel pump, and just before it goes to the carburetor. So in other words, the fuel pressure sender senses both the mechanical pump and the electric pump. So all you get is a tiny drop in pressure when you turn the electric one off. So if you ever want to check, that's better. No, stay there, Caroline. You're blocking the sun. That's it. If you ever want to check the whether the electric and the mechanical pump are working, it's really simple. Because when you turn it on without the engine running, you can hear the electric one buzzing, and you see the pressure. And when it's running, if you just turn the electric one off, you'll get a tiny little drop in pressure. So you can see the difference between the two. So you know they're both working all right. And you can even see, if you fill them up with fuel, if you ever noticed, you get slightly higher fuel pressure, just purely because of the weight of the fuel. Yeah. So they might measure 0.4 and a bit, 0.41, 0.42. And if you're getting quite lowish on fuel, not obviously out of fuel or anything, it'll drop down to about 0.3 something. So just a tiny little difference.
To do with it running, switch the electric.
Yeah. Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's it. But it's only really serious if you've not got a lot of fuel in, because it'll be gravity fed otherwise. Yes. Yes, because the mechanical pump works. The second the engine's running, the mechanical pump works. Yep, it's bolted to the back of the engine. So it works all the time. Not right now, but it will do once the engine runs. Flexible push-pull control. Okay, so down here, there's a, oh, it looks a bit like, actually it moves. Look, it's flexible. There's a cable. Look, it goes through here and disappears off down there. I wonder where that goes. Any Cabri pilots? It is. Yes. So we'll see it when we get, I'll quickly run around there now. So believe it or not, it pops out just here and is actually what changes the pitch on the fenestration blades. That goes all the way now from there to the pedals. So it's actually quite cool. Its attachment points is just here at the gearbox end. And the only other attachment point is by the pedal mechanism. So there's no, like we see on Robinsons, etc. There's no push rods for the fenestrum. It's all done by this flexible push-pull ribbon cable, and very crudely described by me. But inside here, it's really almost like a slither of metal, a strip of metal that's got little bearings surrounding it all the way along. So it's very smooth to operate, completely flexible, so it can go around all sorts of corners and things and bends, and has very, very little play in it. So the play is so slight from one end to the other. It's almost nothing. So it's not a Bowden cable. Never call it Bowden cable because you're really upset, Bruno, if you call it that. Yeah, it's really expensive. It's about $12,000, 12,000 euros. Yeah. Oh yeah, that's the last time I asked, and that was about 10 years ago. Yep. Yeah, I'm going to leave it open for now because we might want to come back. See, there's other things we want to add on there, and that is things like the framework. Remember, you want to expand your knowledge. This frame, I wonder, I never want it to happen, but I wonder what would happen if all this lot cracked and broke. Any takers on that? Supposedly, it's been designed you wouldn't lose the tail. There's actually 4 attachment points. It's meant to be strong enough, we're told, that you wouldn't lose the tail on it. However, I wouldn't want to test it, and I'd like to keep an eye on it. Now, I've not actually seen one of these cut open. I'm led to believe there's a sort of a green dye inside them. It's meant to be anti-corrosion. So potentially, if it cracked, yeah, it'd leach out. So if you ever got, oh, that's weird, it's a bit of, bit of green gund or yellow gund. No, that's needs to be reported. That could be that it's actually got cracked. Yeah, exactly. That's it. Yeah. Yeah. If we're on the helipad, we wouldn't, because of the downwash from other helis and all sorts of things. We'd close it down. But now we're quite safe up here, so we'll leave it open for now. As you rightly said, it's far more light in there, isn't it? And one of the really nice things about Cabri, just standing back, is it's really exposed now. It's so good. You can see so much of it. It's great. So granted to mention electrical connector, yes, make sure it's in position, and there's a whole, just look at all the wiring and making sure it's all secure. Some wiring is critical, some isn't. This wire, I wonder what this one does. Look, it seems to disappear in the tail boom. Yeah, that's it, strobe light. So if it didn't work, it's hardly gonna, impact on the flight, but especially in daylight. It's an anti-collision light, but to be honest, you can't see them when it's bright sunlight like this. But that's not the point. So we want to make sure that it's all okay. And we check it works as well, it will be. I've noticed there's a big hose here. What's that all about? Say that again for me? Yeah, that's right. Dispense the hot air off the engine oil cooler. So we want to check from this side there's no signs of any leaks. It's all attached. Grant mentioned engine mounts, so we're just checking engine mounts. And I haven't kept saying it every single time, but you'll find an awful lot of bolts will have some sort of a split pin in them of some description and torque marks across them as well. All right, okay, tail boom. Yep, so what are we looking for down the tail boom? Yeah, I mean, it's easier to actually see those the other side. What on earth are they for? Pretty good, yeah. So they're bearing hangers for the tower to drive shaft that we can actually see up here. And it sits quite high up in the tail boom, which is one of the reasons why it's got a slightly odd shape to it, just ever so slightly. So the tail boom, we're checking, I mean, it's all carbon fiber, but we still want to make sure there's no signs of damage, cracks, and all those sorts of things. Yeah, an awful lot of this, even this is all carbon fiber. The cockpit, even as you can see here, you can actually see the weave on it, can't you? Quite pretty. All right, so checking our tail boom, no signs of any cracks, upper, lower, etc. Dents. Yep. Which does what? Hey, yeah, that's very true. So it's actually an upside down wing, isn't it? It generates lift down that way to pull the tail down. So in forward flight, it's not too nose down and tail up in the air. With a little gurney flap to disturb the air, so you can't get airflow reversal. Well, reduce airflow reversal. And it's one, but you can see it sticks out the other side. Yeah. What? Just playing devil's advocate for a second. What would happen if we didn't have one of these? Yeah, very good. Yeah, and keep going. Or nose down. So it could be either way, couldn't it? It helps remove oscillations, etc., etc. So in other words, it'd be hideous to try and potentially keep an attitude, and probably way before that, it would disappear up into the main rotor disc. Now, this is not meant to kind of scare anybody, but the whole point is, see, you need to make sure it's definitely attached, and it is not broken. You know, it's not got cracks in it or something. Now, we have got it, like I say, it is one, but it does stick out each side. So if you lost one side, at least you've got the other side. Yeah, it's all carbon fiber, yeah. But it is really quite important. And so is all of this lot at the back end. Now, when I'm teaching, we go through that eventually in training. Let me just turn everybody around. That's it. You know, we want to be serious and say, look, these things are really, really reliable. However, we do want to just make sure that it is going to be okay to go flying, because we don't want things to go wrong. And of all the things we can lose we can lose we can lose all the instruments in this and all sorts of things, can't we? No problem at all. But we can even potentially, if oh, we can't see, I've spun my phone around. If the Fenestrum decided to stop turning in flight, we can still fly. We can still land as well. It might not be a perfect landing. We have to do a certain type of landing, but we can still land. But if we don't have those rotors turning, that's pretty serious, isn't it? That's game over. And if we actually lose, if you like, the back end of the helicopter, if we lose the horizontal in particular and vertical stabilizer, that's not good. So hence, we check they're attached. And I sometimes think that gets skipped over too quickly. People don't really look to make sure this is attached. Oh, yeah, it's all right. Well, yes, it is. But now you realize how critical it is for flight. Perhaps I'll have a closer look next time. Yeah, they're the really serious bits, main rotors and the horizontal and potentially the vertical stabilizer. Really serious bits of kit. They need them on the aircraft. Anyway, so don't want to go mad, but don't be afraid to just give it a bit of a push and a pull. Make sure it doesn't go, and sound like it's loose or something. You think about that, it does get subjected to quite a bit of extreme pressure when we're flying along. Quite a serious amount of force in the air. Yes. Well, as in the same the other side. No, of course not. No. Why is the vertical? So we'll carry on this for a minute. Rotor ducts. Yeah, so anybody's come a bit closer. So the Fenestrum blades, I mean, it's a bit like a normal tail rotor at the end of the day. It's just got a few more. It's got 7 of them. But if I move what would be effectively the pedal, you'll see the blades change their pitch. Look, there we are. Now, bearing in mind the rotors on this turn clockwise, the nose therefore wants to yaw to the left. So its right pedal is the power pedal, which is putting pitch on the blades like this. sucking air in from this direction through, creating that force, makes the tail visually standing at the back go to the left. However, that makes the nose go to the right, isn't it? So there's our anti-torque device, and we just modulate these blades as necessary. Now, the blades on a Fenestrum, if this was a normal tail rotor and we got hold of a blade and it moved that much, I'd be slightly worried. And if you got your 22 or your 44 blade and it wobbled that much, yeah, you don't go flying. That is not good. You might be able to detect the merest bit of play in those blades. But these, look, I mean, literally, look, flapping around. But hang on, so's that one. Oh, so's that one, and so's that one, and so's that one, and that one, and that. They're all the same. And they need to have a bit of play in them. They need to be able to move like that. And they even, I can't do it one hand, but they even actually move slightly forwards and backwards because they don't sit tight in all the bushes here. There is meant to be a bit of slop in them, a bit of play, but it's even amounts. And we check things like that haven't made contact with the duct. So nothing's either got caught behind it or something's loose in the mechanism. And one of these is managing to stretch out and touch. Now, I have noticed there's some funny black marks. Look. Somebody just gone a bit, got a bit carried away with the stickers. Wonder what they're for.
Those are the blade tip limits.
Yeah, so you can't hear John online. If I put a blade in there, it's not about. I had somebody once said, "Oh, it's to check that the blade moves from one mark to the other." Well, they're not actually in alignment with that. What it is, if I now change the pitch, you'll see it probably better from that side. The blade lines up with those marks. And now if I use this pedal, this is effectively the left pedal, it won't be in line with them, but you can see the angle's the same. So in other words, you've got full deflection. Because what happens if we go flying, we don't have full deflection on a Cabri Grant? Yeah. So we won't have full right pedal, which we might need if this thing starts yawing to the left, because remember that's the torque reaction direction. Woo! You need full right pedal to be able to stop that, and we need full left pedal if we ever do engine off landings, because this big old whole thing at the back of the helicopter is a vertical fin, especially if I go like that in alignment with the rest of the helicopter. It's one big fin, and it's very much a lift generating section. You can suddenly see it's like the wing of a plane, isn't it? It's got almost like a flat side to it, and then a very curved side. So this makes the airflow travel longer and faster, and reduction in air pressure, and effectively sucks it that way, i.e. yours to the right. So that's an anti-torque device in forward flight. So the Fenestrum is great. In forward flight, we pretty much have zero pitch on it. It's just spinning round at about 5,000 RPM with zero pitch. So it doesn't use much energy. It's all done by the vertical fin. I don't know. I don't want to find out. Yeah. Oh, yeah, I would imagine so. But what about the imbalance and these sorts of things? But yeah, the general gist is it could probably throw a blade, but oh yeah, they are, but they are meant to be, because what you don't want is it bleeding back through any way, shape, or form. And I don't want to sort of sing the praises of the Fenestrum, but it's really good, and it's no coincidence that it happens to be shaped like this, because the idea is through something like a duct, you will always get a bit of recirculation, and it's meant to sort of curve back round, hit this back into the flow again, rather than pass back round the other side of the Fenestrum, because that would lose its efficiency. A bit like vortex ring sort of thing. So therefore, it's very cleverly shaped, exactly right, to just help it scoop back into the airflow. And the Fenestrum's really cool, especially on the Cabri. It is good once you get used to it and know what you're doing with it. It's a good bit of kit. Anyway. Yep. So things we're looking back here, and maybe delamination, because these are actually two halves stitched together, stuck together. So no sign of any delamination of it, damage, etc., etc. Yeah. So it's this, believe it or not, the 1, 2, 3. So just checking that the framework is attached properly to the ducting of the Fenestrum, because the gearbox is all mounted to the frame, isn't it? And therefore down here is actually the tower to drive shaft running inside, going down to the gearbox. Yep, so that appears to be all attached. Look, locking wire again. Critical parts, aren't they? It's all locked in place. Same. So we can see the turret gearbox oil quite clearly through here. Now it appears to have the levels a tiny bit low in there, or is it low? Yeah. with the helicopter sitting on the level and ideally, not been flown necessarily, so it's all drained down. These sight glasses do sometimes trap a little air bubble. It's not unusual for them to get caught in there. So if I thought it was a tiny bit on the low Earth side, I'd look for a leak, and then if I'm happy with it, check it next time I've flown it and see if it's changed. But they're very susceptible to not being on the level and trapping a little air bubble. Yeah, so here's the chip detector. I don't want to take it out, but it's a bayonet fitting on these with a little valve in there that doesn't, so you wouldn't lose all the oil. Now, I do none of our people. I do know some that check those chip detectors on a regular basis, and they take the chip detector out, have a look, give it a wipe off, and plug it back in, which seems like a good idea. But you can probably hear a slight bit of tone in my voice. I'm not such a, I don't think that's such a good idea. Why might that be? Absolutely. Yes. So there you are. You're trying to be a very good pilot. You take your chip detector out to have a look in case it's got something on there. You wipe it clean with a cloth and you post it back in. Well, were you sure there weren't fibers on that cloth?
What's the chip detector detecting?
Metal particles, ferrous metal, because there's a little magnet on the end of it.
So tower gearbox temperature.
No. So it's purely, and it could be a slither of metal, or it could be a million tiny little fragments that eventually make the electrical connection. So there's only one wire on the back. So this is a positive wire, and it just simply earths out. That's well, it's a positive wire, and it earths out down there, makes the connection. Oh, hold on, no, ignore that. No, these don't earth out, so it's a loop. But the fact there's an insulator in there, so the two wires are just slightly don't touch, and they get bridged across by a bit of metal, and that puts the light on, the caption on us. So yeah, you could easily, by trying to be very good, you could put a foreign matter in there, couldn't you? Every day. But what else are you potentially doing? Tiny amount. I mean, it's nothing. But you are, yeah, if you did it every single time, every time you flew, and bearing in mind that only might get checked every 50 hours, and let's say you flew half-hour flights, that's 100 times you're pulling that in and out, in and out. No, you could damage the seals on them. I say one of the worst things is putting foreign bodies in there. The other thing you're doing is when engineering, then maintenance get hold of the helicopter, they pull that mag plug out and go, wow, it's an amazing gearbox, it's got nothing on it, and plug it back in again. So you keep wiping off the evidence of what, yeah, yep. So it's better for maintenance to have a look and go, oh, we need to keep an eye on this one. This is a bit more than, we're used to seeing. And so you get that trend, don't you? Whereas you're wiping that clean and taking away. So there's there is arguments about taking mag plugs out and wiping them. I do get it, but for the amount of times we see chip lights on these sorts of things, I don't think it's a good idea to take them out because we never see it. So it's not a worry about the build-up between maintenance. If there was a build-up, I'd be more worried about the build-up rather than, oh, it's annoying, it could put the light on. Yeah, for good reason. Okay. Yeah, so there was the pitch lever, rod end. There's an adjuster screw. It's really important here, Grant. You probably heard me say when we taught you. This adjuster screw, it's got a little locking nut on there, but it's also now got torque stripes on it. Because if that manages to be loose or somebody alters that, this is the right pedal stop.
Yeah.
Yes. So suddenly, either A, you might have more right pedal than you really ought to, which is increased pitch on the blades to the point where you could start stalling them or something to that effect. Or you don't have enough right pedal. You have to look from this side, John. Through there. Basically, check his noise. Other things you really want to check. As a locking nut, just there. There's a second nut on the back end. Is the bolts that hold the gearbox on. These really aren't that tight. It's not as tight as you might think. Because they're into an alley casting, these. So you want to check, of course they're there and locking wire, but there's no fretting. We have found one once with fretting on. Where it's been vibrating. And depending on the metal, depends on the colour of the fretting. You can get black oxidization, silvery colour, brown colour from either way. If you find any fretting, any dust, that is not good. If it's the same dust as down here, it's just dirt in the air, isn't it? But if it's specifically around those bolts, yes, that's it. Whilst we're down this end, if we saw a line of oil all the way around the shrouding in here, the ducting, the output seal is leaking because it goes out and through the blades and down the side of the blades. But if we saw just simply a bit of oil splattered back here, I wouldn't be too worried. Why? It usually comes out the breather. If the gearbox is slightly overfilled in forward flight, it splats on there. I'd still be checking. So there's actually a little hole here on the casing for you Cabri pilots. So the input seal, which is hiding in there, if it leaks, you get oil dribbling out of there. So I want to make sure it's not coming out of here, not leaking out the chip detector or any mechanism. It's just purely the breather. Ecotel used to do it. Yeah, used to sometimes on a hot day after we've been flying around, have just a little bit of oil on the back there. Not unused, but I have seen the seals, output seals go, and then you get a ring of oil all around the ducting. Okay. Yeah, another one of those. Look, attached. Yeah, now we can see those bolts with torque stripes on them. Yeah, apart from covered in flies. Yep, that's what we've just been looking at. And the plugs are just inspection holes for maintenance.
Sorry, Paul. Were those the plugs on top of the tailboard?
Yes.
Right.
There we go.
Thank you.
See, but the black plug can be removed and then laparoscope put in there so you can see what's inside. Yeah, there we go. There's the other side of the engine. I found another engine. It's a twin engine. Yeah, it's good, isn't it? Yeah, it's quite good, yeah. Yeah, okay, Grant. So more tubes, attachments, yes. Yep. The muffler. And don't be afraid, mine is not hot, which is why you should, it's good idea to check these with gloves. It's been sitting a long time. There's no harm. I'm not being aggressive with it. I'm just making sure. I'm giving it a bit of a wiggle, make sure it's not loose. Things like the bracket down here, making sure it's not cracked. But yep. Oil filter. Some of they went through a period, not so much for the Cabris, of the locking wire, not locking them in place. But we tend to have locking wire, and you can quite often find there's an arrow to show if it's if it's been rotating at all, an arrow up. Yep.
Engine oil dipstick. Check the water seal.
Here we go. Oh, wow. Yes, there is. Just a manufacturer. So checking the oil, and we're actually got 5 quarts. So 4's minimum, 6 is maximum, 5. What's our thoughts on that? It does a little bit. It has been flying today, but it's cold now. They'll feel. Oh yeah, it'll be crap because and it tends to drains out the oil filter a little bit, etc., etc. So they do float around a little bit. So you like Ron said, you'll check them in the morning with 6 quarts. You do one flight and check it, it'll be 5.5. You haven't burned half a quart. It's just gone around the rest of the engine, even though it's warmed up and expanded slightly. It's on 5 at the moment. So yeah, there's various thoughts about this. So and we've had this recently discussion, and with Caroline. What's your thoughts on engine oil? Apart from it definitely needs some. What does it do? So its primary, of course, is to lubricate, isn't it? So it coats particles if it's gaseous dispersion, or if it's not running in oil. It coats particles, things like carbon, with a film of oil because it's the carbon that really wears your engine away. So it protects the engine, lubricates, doesn't it? So you don't get friction. Friction creates heat, etc., etc. It's not good. And somebody else said it also helps cool the engine. Yeah, it's not its primary function, but it's certainly one of the functions. So you could easily argue that the less oil there is, the less lubricating protection you've got, the less cooling you've got. And in these hot weathers, they struggle. Yeah, they do struggle. They run quite hot if you're not careful. Now, I realise if you put, lots of oil, especially if it's an old worn-out engine, it tends to blow the oil out the breather pipe, typically down here on a Cabri, for instance. But the worst thing is it just loses a little bit of oil. Doesn't really cause any other harm, but not having enough oil is not good news at all. Even more so in a Cabri because, Grant, what else does the engine oil do? Lubricates, cools the clutch mechanism. So it's also the hydraulic fluid, effectively, on a Cabri for the clutching mechanism. So if we get a bit low on engine oil. It's a bit hot, doesn't protect as well, doesn't cool as well, loses oil pressure. What else loses oil pressure? The clutch mechanism that's tension in the belt. There is a non-return valve, but they do eventually leak. Yeah, it's not a completely perfect non-return. So whatever your engine oil pressure is, that's basically what's in the hydraulic ram for the clutch. And so there was a last year, might have been the year before. It's well documented on YouTube. It's not an accident or anything, but it's a bit of a long-winded story. But basically, a helicopter doesn't sound like it was probably checked. It's Cabri, wasn't really checked properly in the morning. And then the next pilot that flew it didn't. I think they openly admit they didn't check the engine oil, and went off flying down the heli lanes. Somewhere down the heli lanes, they've got literally failing engine oil pressure, clutch lights on, which means the belt will probably start slipping. Bit of a, I think they did a Mayday call. Anyway, they landed Battersea heliport. Battersea were really good with them. They didn't charge them or anything. So they managed to land there. They landed on the pontoon and shut down. All it was the engine was low on oil. That's all it was. And the backstory, I think, if I remember rightly, is this helicopter had been bought to the person to go and fly, but it had already done a very long journey and probably wasn't one of the best engines in the world, maybe not been well looked after, was probably already low on oil, and nobody bothered checking it any further. And that's all it is. They topped up with oil and it's back to normal. Yeah, literally. Yeah, you search YouTube, you'll find it. It's well documented. Yeah, it's just simply low engine oil. That's all it was. So, and we do see it in the Cabri. If you run these with less than 5 quarts, we notice the engine oil pressure does start to drift down the left-hand end of the green, and the oil temperature will rise more as a net result. So 5 I'd be our absolute minimum. So I'm very tempted to put one in and just take it back up. But I'm also conscious it might not be perfectly on level surface. So like Ron says, I might actually wait till the morning and top it up then. Once I said, yeah, I'm flying it back in. Okay. Sorry for banging on about that, but it's really important. Engine mounts, yes, more engine mounts. The pins are in, look like they're in fuel lines. Oops, fuel lines, fuel lines. Down here, clutch distributors up here. It's attached. The lines are okay. No signs of any problems. Yep. Now we see those on the back of the oil cooler. It's got the little blue union on it. Look, here's one of the oil cooler pipes. There's another one just down there. Torque stripes on them all in line. Now, whilst I'm in here, I can also see grass. So what? Is that a problem? Yeah, because where does it go once it's gone through there? Because that's the air intake for the cooling fan. So it can begin to block up or reduce the efficiency of your cooling fan. Then where does it go? After the cooling fan, on these is a great big fan hiding behind here. Onto the engine. On top of the cylinders that are air cooled. So you've now got grass sitting on the cylinders. And what does that do?
Gets in between the lanes.
Yeah. Yeah, it's not compression, but it stops the cooling effects. You get hot spots. Then the grass also catches fire. You literally can smell it burning sometimes. And so, of course, now you don't know if you're on fire or if it's just singeing grass on your engine. Where else does it go? Into the oil cooler. Blocks the oil cooler up. Now on these, on a Robinson, like the 22, isn't it, Caroline? You can kind of get your hand into where the oil cooler is and take out any excessive grass. You can't on one of these. The oil cooler is attached to the cooling fan housing and it's bolted on them. We can't get in there by hand unless the panel gets taken off on the other side. All has to be unscrewed and everything. When you block the oil cooler up, oil gets hot, etc., etc. Engine gets hot. Not good. Yeah, that's up there. VHF antenna, attachment point, no restrictor on it, of course not, because it's winter. So these are a little bit too efficient in winter time, so you have to blank this off, otherwise the engine never gets up to temperature properly. Yeah, more HT leads, just checking they're not touching the framework through here. Yeah. Yeah, so once again, all the baffling of the engine, all looks good. Bit more grass. Okay, now that's hiding right up. I don't know if I can do it with my phone. Oh, not bad. Yeah, just in here. There's the rotor brake. Right up inside. Get it around the right way. Let's try to. There we are. Yep, looks like it's in good condition. So flex couplings are on the end of things like the drive shafts. Look a little bit different. Let me go with phone up in there. There we go. They look a little bit different from the Robinson ones. Do the same job. So part of the flex coupling is attached to the drive shaft, and then if I rotated that round, the next part's attached to the flange that goes into the where the sprag clutch is in the upper pulley, etc., etc. So you want to make sure it all looks nice and tight, no sign of looseness on it. Yep, that looks good. There's our upper pulley. No signs of any leaks because that bit here, oops, what's it called? That's where the sprag clutch sits, and that's oil filled in there. So we want to make sure there's no oil leaking out of it. So this is the hydraulic ram, and it's retracted nicely. No signs of any leaks. Yeah, I might be able to do this with my phone. Let's see. So through there, you can just about see the sight gauge. It's probably too dark on my phone at the moment. I don't think I can turn the light on with this, can I, right now? Oops. Have a look what happens. No, I can't. Oh, I might. Hang on. Let me see if... No, it's been Oops. Ah, poop. Sorry, just bear with me. Oh, God, I've lost everybody. Hey, back again. Right. I was just trying to turn the light on my phone at the same time. Won't let me do it. So, yeah, sight gauge is just in there. So you have to peel a little flat back just in my fingers to expose that. Yep, I can see the gearbox oil. And I can also see the belt once again down this side. All looks good. You can even, when you peer up through this gap, see the alternator and the alternator belt in there. Yeah, that's it. Just checking down there. There's no sign of any oil or lumps of belt. That's also up in that housing. If you pull the flap down further, you can actually see where the chip detector is. This is exactly the same as the tail rotor one with a little blue end on it. Exhaust pipes. So that's down. Oh, sit down again. That's down here. So there's a hose aimed at one part of the exhaust manifold. Goes down to the air filter, as you can see, where the little electric motor that hides under there. Yeah, now we've had a couple now of the Cabri carb heat motors actually come loose. Yeah, they're only actually stuck down. So we've got a little additional check now whereby we just put a finger on there and we just make sure carefully, but we wiggle the motor, just make sure it's not actually loose. Yeah, they're glued down. There's down around the other side, there's two tiny little screws that don't really hold it in place. Just under, that's it there, that's it. Yeah, just a little wiggle, just a little, like a little roll, just to make sure it doesn't move. Yeah, of course. It's under there, John. No, just there. So just give that a little wiggle, just to make sure it's not loose. There, that's the motor. Yeah, the last happened quite recently in Echo Hotel, in that the motor came loose and of course it doesn't hit a travel stop, it just keeps winding, and it wound the cables all around the motor and then eventually shorted out, and Port Dylan was flying at the time and lit it up like a Christmas tree. Was it? Yeah, I think it's Dylan. Yeah, it's the next thing you know, he's got literally all these warnings on. It was either Dylan or Sean. And it was the motor that wound it round. And then, of course, also the carb motor now doesn't work properly. So now you're into the whole realms of carb icing and all the rest of it. So, yeah. So not only do we check it works, we'll turn the electrics on and make sure the flap works properly. And we also check the motor isn't not loose because it's happened twice. Yep. Okay, so our air filter sits aside here. There's a ducting hose that goes up around into this duct in here, and then eventually goes right up the top there, and some nice fresh air for the engine. Okay, so does anybody want to tell me what let's get a good view of it, it's a bit hidden around there, what this thing is here, the gasculator? Yeah, there's a little filter in there. but not just simply for filtering dirt. It's a water trap, which is why there's a valve on the bottom of it. And we're going to push that up and just test that in a minute with a fuel sample to make sure there isn't any in there. Fuel flow sensor. Yep, measuring the flow of fuel going to the carburetor. So the Cabri has a very accurate capacitance sender in the fuel tank. So if you know how much fuel you've got and the speed at which it's flowing to the carburetor, you can therefore work out how long it lasts. And the Cabri does that, doesn't it? Fuel endurance is really good. So literally, as you're changing power, it alters the number as to how long it will last for. Yeah, it's pretty good. But again, we don't entirely rely upon it. We still do our own mental maths. But yeah, absolutely. It's really good. Yep, really good. Exactly. Yeah. It's exactly what the Cabri does, but in time rather than distance, of course. Yeah, so that was under, we've looked down there underneath there. Yep. Yeah, I'm going to leave it open for a minute, of course, as I said. Okay, so and then there'll be a bit more in a second, but just whilst we're here, what didn't it say check, for instance? And I'm not trying to pick holes in the checklist. It's kind of said about that. It sometimes mentions that. Yes. Yeah, exactly. So just as an example, did it say check this bracket's in place? Why not? It's there. Oh, he's gonna hit that car. Oh, it's hers. Oh God, do you think she's paid for that? Sorry, it's just the I think the I think the service is finished over there now. It's either that or it's it's after work, isn't it? Oh, I'm gonna have to work late tonight. Oh God Almighty! Just catch the registration. Look. Bye. Oh dear. Sorry. Right. No, it didn't, did it? But what if that broke and this came off and it went down there and it threw? So what we're trying to say is don't just ignore it just because it's not on the checklist. You know, you want to have a good look around in general for anything that is loose. It didn't say, for instance, you know, check this tiny bit of wiring down here, but it's not rubbing on anything. Oops, there we go, down there. Because if that rubbed on part of the engine and rubbed through it, short out. But you would just do it as a matter of course. It doesn't. I don't need a checklist to tell me. Keep an eye out for wiring that could be chafing, that anything could be cracked and loose, or a bolt that's undone, or something that clearly should have a locking wire through it and doesn't. That's the sort of thing you use your common sense for, isn't it? So remember, yeah, the checklist don't necessarily say every single nut and bolt. I once had, somebody teaching somebody to do an inspection, and nobody here, nobody you'd know, but they were kind of a little bit, oh, well, you know, that's what maintenance is for. Well, you know, there's a bit of a gap between, you know, when they see it. He says, what should I know? Everything, I said. Every nut and bolt. Oh, what? You know, I said, that's what you should be striving for. You know, even if you never achieve that in time, that's what you ought to aim for. No, you can't. No, you ought to be inquisitive. What does that do? What should I need to look for? Why is that there? If this one's a bit loose, is that a real big problem, for instance? You know, you. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. No. Well, luckily, we kind of can in helicopters because we can land. Because for the most part, we don't fly amazingly high above the ground. You know, 2,000 foot above the ground for the most part, certainly around here, is plenty, no problems at all. We haven't got any mountains in the way. I mean, you know, 2,000 feet, if you get a bit of a wriggle on, you can be on the ground in just a little over 60 seconds. So we have got that luxury. It's one of the reasons why I chose helicopters, is I like the idea that if things aren't going amazingly well, not necessarily with the helicopter, but just in general, you can just, well, you know what, I can just slow down or / land and just have a bit of a think about this. I get myself on the ground. Everywhere's a landing site virtually. Anyway, Yeah, right. Okay, so we're finishing there for a minute. Actually, I will just shut that because it'll get in the way. This has also got the same sort of safety catches down there. Yep. So checking landing gear, etc., etc. Yep. Nav lights. Yep. What haven't I been? Yes. Yes. So carefully, but it's recognised you can stand on here, no problems at all. Whereas on things like the R44, you need to be really careful if you try and stand on, you know what I'm talking about, on the back seat base, because if it hasn't been strengthened, you can buckle them. We had somebody do that once to one of our 44s. They stood on it and bent it, and now that seat's ability to absorb impact has been compromised. It now has to be repaired. It's not been necessarily designed. Hence, that's why we've got a sticker on there that says use a step. But the Cabri has been designed. You can stand on there. It's been reinforced, etc., etc. Yep, so we've got a little step down there. It's best to make sure the blade's not right above your head. Sorry, just trying to get anybody else. So can one step down there, a foot in there, for instance. And I can climb up and quite happily stand. That's it. Yeah, that's it. Mind you don't rip it. Just move this round. And then we can, again, I'm not going to go necessarily through every single nut and bolt, but we've got the cap protecting the head. We've got blade bolts, and they've got, see how this tab's bent up in between the bolts. You probably can't see it down there. There's a big metal tab here. It goes between the bolts. So they haven't got any lock wire on them, but with the tab bent up, there's no way they can come undone because it's between the flats of the bolts or the nuts themselves. Pendulum weights all move freely. Yes, they do. Lead lag dampers have got no play in them. We look at things like the Lord mounts for where the rotors are actually mounted on, and these are incredibly stiff rubber with metal discs in there. But you want to make sure they don't appear to be delaminating or anything daft like that. So a good old look around, and don't be afraid. I mean, don't want to go too mad, but you can get hold of a blade and you can give it a bit of a pull and a bit of a wiggle. You're not going to break it. You think about what this has to absorb when we're flying. It's okay, but you wouldn't do that with a pitch link. You wouldn't start wrenching that around. Whoops, get my phone right. There. You wouldn't start pulling this backwards and forwards because it's not been designed to do that. This takes loading along the length of it, doesn't it? Anyway, having a good old look around up there. Just going to step down for a second a bit. So does anybody want to tell me, how do you test something like this pitch link? Yeah, you can do, but... So have you ever seen anybody do this with them? Yeah, that one's all right. All right, what have you proved? Okay, is that its function? I'll come around here a minute because you'll be out the sun. Come around here a sec. Especially you, Jonathan. Got you now. So if I just do this, anybody online, what have I done? What have I proved?
I can't see it actually because it's freezing, but can you give it just a twist and check that there's not too many?
I'm just twisting it. Now, this is where you'll get all sorts of interesting theories and whatnot. If it's stiff, that's not good. If it's loose, that's good. I think, okay, right. Well, this one is, it's kind of a bit loose, but not entirely. If I were to go and move the cyclic a bit, it would start to load it and it would become stiff. So it's proved nothing. But that's not really what we're checking. What does the pitch link do? Yes, so it applies a force longitudinally along it like this, up and down, on this pitch horn that changes the pitch on that blade. So if somebody would be kind enough to lean in carefully, but just move the cyclic around. So don't go mad on it. You can see it now moving, can't you? Look. So if Jonathan does that, go on, keep that. I can't twist that now. Yes, I can. No, I can't. It goes stiff and tight and loose rather. But that's not what we're checking on it. What we're checking is no longitudinal play. Now to do it, I'd have to put my phone down, but you kind of hold on to part of the pitch horn and then you hold on to the rod or the bottom one and you try and pull them apart. So for those people here, you literally can kind of get hold of it, push and pull it. And you can feel, if you put your finger across the top of it, you can feel if that moves in any way, shape or form. And the fact, literally moving like this, I can see there's none down here either on that. And of course, you do it to all of them, don't you? So just remember that little twiddle doesn't really tell us anything. You know, those two are the same, and that one's a bit stiffer. But I bet if you move the cyclic, it'll free off. So we want to check there's no longitudinal play in all those pitch links. Then we get into, no, we can mind your heads. Sorry, this Cabri blades are quite low. We get into these things. This thing here, what's this called? It's the rotating scissor link. And it makes sure that the rotating part of the swash plate rotates with the blades, doesn't it? Keeps it all in alignment. So if I were to get hold of the bottom of the pitch links and just move backwards and forwards, we can see how much play there is in these bushes. And that's, yeah, so in particular on the Cabris at the moment, we have to check that the bracket here that's bonded on is not coming away or broken, actually cracked. And there's another one down there. Now, to check the lower one, Jonathan, tell you what, or Grant, do you do this with your Cabri? If you lean in there, take the friction off the collective, lift the collective up, and then put the friction back on again with the lever in the up position. Fabulous. Now what it's done is it's really lifted all the swash plate up, and I can easily see now the lower swash plate, because you also have to check they're not cracked on the ends of the swash plates. Yeah, it's much easier to see. And you can see the lower scissor link looking through the front as well. I can see it from in here anyway, down through, there it is there. Again, checking for any excessive play. They tend not to wear as much because they're not rotating round, but looking for those cracks, etc. But that's a much easier way of spotting everything. And now, of course, these links are quite tight. Yeah, well spotted. So why has only one of these pitch links got this sort of heat shrinking around it, whereas the others haven't? This is the master one. This is one you don't adjust. You adjust them all to this one, basically. So you can see the yellow blade is preset on its pitch, and you adjust all the others accordingly. Yeah, it's fine. You can release the friction, put it back down. How am I doing? Good. All right, so once it's satisfied, all that lot's okay. What have we got left? Yes, checked all. Yeah, and you can look down. And that's all. I mean, this is now a bit more particular to the Cabri. Down there is the air intake and all sorts of things, and gearbox. Yeah, so we kind of checked that when we went down. It made sense to check it on the ground. There's no need to, is there? Look, you just go. But yeah, absolutely, yeah. But you know, maybe there's something we ought to check in here. Yeah, good. All these sorts of things. That's right. First aid kit sealed in date. There's the blanking. We tend to keep in the helicopter at winter time to put in the way of the air intake. Whether you've got covers and rotor tip covers, spare oil, cleaning products for the screen. Yeah, so that's right. Down here, there's a shelf, and I can, if I reach down, ta-da! There's an exhaust cover straight away. What else is down there? Nothing else. Oh, hold on. No, it's just part of the strap. No, there's nothing down there. So what else I'm looking for is there's nothing in there that shouldn't be in there. Something, something nasty. Maybe somebody's decided they're going to take a bottle of fuel with them. That's not a clever idea. Yeah, absolutely. So it's not just simply the things that should be in there, but make sure you haven't got anything that shouldn't be in there. Inside the cockpit. Yep. Yes. So, if I can get my phone around there. Yeah, there we go. These seats sit on rails, and the idea is you're checking that they haven't gone down at all, which would suggest it's had a heavy landing, those sorts of things. And without going heavily into them, there's something that looks a bit like a shock absorber behind them that absorbs the impact. So these can absorb up to 38 G vertical impact, which is about 2,000 feet rate of descent. So if you whacked into the ground 2,000 feet per minute, the seat's meant to absorb the impact. But we're just meant to check that both seats haven't already dropped, i.e. already had a heavy landing. All right. That's right. So therefore, if the seats go down, you want to make sure there's nothing underneath them that would stop them from dropping. Or nothing hard anyway. Yep. Yes, so seatbelts. Now, something that nobody ever seems to do is they put their seatbelt on, but nobody ever checks it works. What do you mean by works? Yeah, so if I give it a quick pull, it should lock up. But if I put it gently, of course it works for convenience. But the second I put it tight or quick, yeah, it locks up. Nurture real belt. Absolutely. Otherwise, what's the point in having one on? It's not going to do a lot. Little fire extinguisher. Which is going to be interesting when because Halon now is not apart from aviation, and that's going to stop October, I think, and they don't seem to have a replacement yet. I'm not sure what's going to happen there. Anyway, yeah, it can. Now, in particular, I adjust the pedals accordingly. Well, I have them on the longer setting. Dual controls in or out. There's something else. At the base of the cyclic. So anybody that flies the Cabri knows that the cyclic sometimes can get quite stiff and heavy, can't it? Especially when it's getting closer to needing the service because the droop stop up the top has not been greased. And if we keep, as we're supposed to, doing full and free travel of the cyclic, these can get quite stiff and you can apply quite a lot of force through the base of the cyclic where the tube's welded onto plates, etc., and you can crack them. So we now need to check, looking through, from behind underneath the seat. Where's my lens? There it is. At the base of the cyclic, along here, for instance, up here, and then round the front and both sides, although the pilot cyclic tends to be the one that's likely to get cracked because this gets used more than the other side. So anywhere where there's any welding, making sure there's no sign of any cracking. Yep, that looks good. And same with the pedals, etc. as well. Yeah, just make it, and some of this now becomes common, making sure you've got loose objects in there, especially if we're going to start flying with doors open or doors off, etc., like we did earlier, Caroline, didn't we? Yeah, that's it. Okay. Yeah, around the other side, you can put a cap just to blank it off. So, no, I haven't either. I mean, you've got to poke your finger in there for it to be a problem, haven't you? Of course, all those sorts of things. Circuit breaks back here. Okay, right. So we're now finally into the last little bits and pieces, the electrics, aren't we? But also fuel sampling. It looks like it's hidden down there. That's it. Sorry. So I'm just getting my fuel tester. Just open up this cowling again. Now, never be tempted with the Cabri to test the gascolator with the master on and the fuel pump on. It's not under a lot of pressure, but it's enough to come firing out there fast, very fast. And you don't need to. So if I just put the tube under that valve and push up and make sure it's locked off, because these are little bayonets, you can actually lock them in that drain position and make sure it doesn't dribble anymore. And then we're looking at the color of the fuel. Whoops, my lead tie around my leg. Nice blue fit seats on a nice solid white background. There we go. You can see nice and blue, no sign of any debris, etc., etc. I'm just going to fling that away from everybody. And then main tank. So back down where that flange was. And there it is. Sorry, the manifold, they like to call it. So push up in there. It's the same little valve. That's right at the bottom of the tank. They are nice and blue. No sign of any water or debris in there. Looks good. Now those little valves are just sprung loaded with O-rings. To be really safe and secure, what we ought to now do, to be honest, is turn the master on and turn the fuel pump on and make sure nothing leaks out of the gascolator. Yep, because like I say, if I just push that valve, just look, a lot comes out. So I want to make sure, because if that now was leaking, wouldn't take you long to pump all your fuel out right around your very, very hot engine exhaust and the rest of it. So yeah, it's not a bad idea just to turn the pump on. It's not in the checklist, but it's a good idea just to be on the safe side. On the Robinsons, they're almost exactly the same, like a little valve, but they have a terrible habit of leaking, but they're not under any pressure. So yeah, I just sometimes do that just to make certain I'm happy with it. And we can see on the screen now, look, there's a fuel pressure. If I turn the pump off, it will retain it, but it will very, very slowly drop. Very fine fuel quantity. Now I'm going to leave the master on, just making sure things are the radios off. Everything else is switched off at present. So the electrics, what could I check? Well, there's no warnings on there for a start off. Yep, so I can put a strobe light on and make sure that's flashing away. Anti-collision light, yeah, that looks good. I can turn the nav lights on. You can check green and white, and somebody's very going to kindly just, whoops, hands in the way. Red and white on the other side. Yeah, on these, you can literally just turn the landing light on. There we go. It should have the landing light. There's no need to engage clutches if you're a Robinson pilot or anything like that. It's just literally flick the switch with the master on. Hey, presto. That's all working quite nicely. And then last but not least, the carb heat. I want to make sure that does actually work. It's automatic carb heat. It's currently in the automatic position, but we have to monitor it a lot. So how am I going to do that? Well, I'm going to go around the other side. So if you'll come around this side. If you remember, on the side of the air filter, there's a little lever. It's currently up in the cold position. Now I'm going to flick the switch and then run around to that point and watch. So I'm flicking in hot. Yep, and there it goes. And it's now run. Look into the hot position. It didn't struggle, it didn't stop or anything like that. Then I'm going to put it back into the cold position. Quickly run around. And there it's gone all the way into the cold. And I might do that several times if necessary, just to really check it runs beautifully without any catching anything, without struggling. Sometimes when they get warm, you can literally hear them grind, almost grinding down, struggling to go into the hot position. So we don't want that. So that one you can see runs quite quickly, cleanly, all the way around. Electric's what?
Good night, Daddy.
Oh, night, sweetheart. Night, night. So I won't see you tonight. It'll be late by the time we get home. Bye, darling. I mean, you can set up frequencies and all sorts of things. There's still bits and pieces more really to tell you. Headsets, making sure they're plugged in. You could even check they work before you wind up before you start the engine if you really wanted to. For us, making sure our GoPro cameras have got the SD card in, battery is charged, and make sure it works all before starting the engine up. Because there's nothing worse than starting the engine and you discover this stuff doesn't work. So you've got to shut down now. So you might as well, yeah, thanks, John. So you might as well check it all works beforehand. And things like door seals, making sure they all sit in the right position, cleanliness, all these sorts of things, isn't there? Good. And then last but not least, don't forget to close it all down and latch it up again properly. Whoops, I'm torching the way. Well, I say last but not least, almost last but not least. So I'm just going to latch it up. That's done. Make sure that one under there we go. Oops, is latched. That's good. Luggage compartment closed without slamming it. Doors closed. Oh, I did turn it back off. Yes, I did. Cool. Now, apart from paperwork, all those sorts of things, checking note times, weather, although it looks fabulous, doesn't it? Is that done now? I'm just pretend we clean the windscreen. I will do that before I go, probably. Obviously, all those sorts of things, yeah. But as far as checking the helicopter, we done. What do you reckon, Tom? Yeah. So we've got one yes. Jonathan said yes. Ali? So if I go inside, I don't need to check it again now, correct? Quite sure? Caroline? I'm not saying do. I'm not saying do.
Do you have to check it again before you fly it?
You can't hear Catherine. She just said literally what you just said as well. Got to check it again before you go fly it. But I wouldn't go around everything like that. When I come back out, I'm going to just walk literally just round it, just to triple check. Not only that, I've been faffing around with the fuel cap. Am I sure I put it back properly? Did I actually do the cowlings up? Yes, I did. Back round, back round here. There's no obvious signs that anything's changed. There's not a plastic bag that's gone into your finish whilst it's been indoors. I'm still happy where it's parked. Nothing's changed out here. Then also, we don't even have to undo the cowling. Am I sure I put the dipstick back in place? Do one last walk round to the helicopter to make sure that I haven't made a mistake and nothing's changed. And then I've given Tom the startup checklist. What's the first 2 lines? Yeah, exactly, isn't it? So it's what I've just said. So we're sitting in the cockpit, and so you say to your student, "Did you put the fuel cap on?" "No, I thought you did." "I'm sure you did." "No, it was your job." "Oh, no." Yeah. And it's even worse when you're up in the air and you go through that. You go, "Did you put it back on?" "No, I thought you did it." Oh my God, this is not good now because we can't even check it when we're flying along. So yeah, it's better just to do that one last quick double check. And we're very happy we're not doubting ourselves and in the air. Any questions? So I was only putting the checklist back.
Thank you very much. Excellent.